In our journey towards understanding the democracy, especially when we started it in the grade 9, that is in the previous year, we tried to understand what are the factors that provoked the people to turn towards democracy, like dictatorship, versus democracy. Once we understood clearly that dictators cannot be further accepted, because in the modern days we need to understand that everything, whatever it happens, it is for the benefit of the people. So today the governments should run with the guiding principle of responsible and taking care governments, or who tries to do best for the people. That is the reason why they are also known as representative governments. So when we talk about responsible representative, responsible governments means what? Responsible for whom? Responsible for people. Representative, whose representatives are these people? Here also the same, these people are the representatives of the people. So when we talk about the representative governments, when we talk about the dictatorship governments, there is slight variation here. Dictatorship is something which the leader wants to do. Democratic governments is something which the people would like to have on their side. It's very clear. So the leaders are elected by the people. The leaders will be given the choice to rule only with the consent of the people. So the underlying power factor for democracy is the consent or the approval of the people. The consent or the approval of the people. So these all things are the basic factors what we have decided. Then we already have clearly stated that we need certain specifications. We would like to understand clearly what the political parties do, how the election procedure works, how is the time period bound for elections, why is it mandatory to conduct elections after a fixed period of time, and how do really the people exercise their political rights. After discussing all these things, we would be able to understand the two basic factors of democracy are political parties, the other one is the elections. So neither political parties nor elections, any one is absent, obviously it would lead to the destruction of democracy. Either the elections or the political parties are delayed, but there is democracy. But in case neither the political parties are there nor you have elections, then you completely understand that there are no democratic structure existing in that particular country. We have also seen various struggles which are faced by the people. If you remember, we analyzed clearly how did the differentiation of people, the communities, the culture has been accommodated in Belgium, whereas it was not accommodated in Sri Lanka, which led to the civil war. So after having a thorough understanding on all these basic facts, now we can come to a conclusion that democracy still needs to improve. As we discussed earlier, democracy itself, when we understand about the democracy, first of all the challenge of democracy is to turn towards democratic structure. From the monarchic style, from the aristocracy, you turn out towards democracy. That is the fundamental challenge or the basic challenge. And once you turn into democracy, again you need to get some more challenge to be overcrossed. As the time passes on, the tests for democracy do not get end. Why they do not get end? Because the way you understand the democracy is a continuous process. It is an evolving process. You can't say this is the end of democracy. The democracy goes on evolving as the time passes on. So when the time passes on, when new challenges come up, new tasks come up. So depending on the tasks, depending on the challenges, you need to understand yourself what is actually happening and how you need to circulate them and how you need to accommodate them. In the examples of this Belgium or in Sri Lanka, we have understood clearly when you are able to accommodate them, you can successfully have a democratic structure. When you are not able to accommodate them and when you go for taking sidelines of any one group of people, obviously it would lead to some destruction in the society. Now coming to the point of conclusion, like when we come to redefining democracy, why do we need to redefine democracy? What are the factors that led us to think on the redefining of democracy? When we talk about the democracy, first point is the major concern: rulers should have full authority to take decisions. When I say rulers should have full authority to take decisions, because most of the times the political parties are controlled by the big corporate groups which are funding them whenever they need it. So this kind of attitude, this kind of the behavior which is in the present day society has to be stopped. The rulers means the people whom the real public has trusted on them and voted in the favor of them in order to get them into power and gave a free hand for them to rule the system, govern the government. But in actual reality, the things are not going in that way. They are sidelined. They are not being followed in the similar manner. So these kind of things has to be arrested severely. These things should not happen. This should be questioned strictly, because the rulers or the people who have trusted the rulers and voted in the favor of them, expecting that they would be good and benefiting them on a larger scale. But the point is, when the people have trusted somebody and these people are working for the big corporate tycoons, would obviously result in the destruction of the common man's life. So this has to be checked severely. The second major fundamental thing what we can understand is that through elections, the people should be given free and fair choice. So when I say free and fair choice, you may get a doubt, sir, we obviously have a free and fair choice, no? Why should we have a point again stating that we should have a free and fair choice? When I say that we should have free and fair choice, the point is free from any kind of pressures, fair in respect to the candidates. Fair means they should not be having any kind of criminal records, they should not be alleged of any kind of scams, they should not be having coming from the multi-business group people where they even don't know what is the problems that a common man do have. When you become a parliamentarian or when you become a member of a legislative assembly and you are born with a filthy rich and you don't know how does a common man face a problem, and your name is involved in various scams, you are having some criminal background record. So all these things would definitely affect the administration, and the people would not be able to trust not the leader but the democratic structure, because people start to question them and people start to misunderstand that this may be the real democracy, but in actual terms that's not real democracy. When we discuss about the different issues, like for example the current existing ruler is not working to benefit of the people, he is not up to the expectations of the people, obviously we should have a choice in a free and fair manner to remove the existing current rulers. So this kind of things have to provide for us the true picture of democracy. So when the current rulers are not being given the chance, or when the people are not given chance to eliminate the current rulers, obviously it does not fall into the category of true democracy. As I told you earlier, the candidate should have a good and proper record, while these all things do matters. Because if a leader of a political party is having with a criminal record and he is alleged with similar scam complaints against him, or like he is a corrupt person, obviously it would give a wrong impression for the people that he may lead the country also towards a corrupt practices. So these all have to be checked clearly. This is very important task on regards to democracy. And as I told you earlier, democracy do have certain limitations, but these certain limitations should be on the ruler's part. The ruler's part should be restricted with the constitution's basic rules. So the constitution's basic rules have to be questioned clearly, and people should be given the choice to elect the leaders freely and fairly. We should have a clear alternative. For example, if you don't like the existing rulers, you need to understand that clearly that you are having a choice of the other alternative. And when we talk about the rules part, the restriction or the restriction coming, the constitution has provided for a certain basic rules, basic structure of the constitution, which everybody has to adopt it and follow that. When we don't have that kind of nature and attitude, it is very, very difficult to survive in that kind of structures, which is obviously leading towards dictatorship or aristocracy. So now the question is, how do you define democracy? We have seen the previous definitions of democracy, like rule by people, of the people, for the people. So rule by people, rule of the people, rule for the people. When we talk about these kind of words, we feel like yes, really people are having a clear and they can definitely question the government. But in actual terms today, the modern democracies are not like that. They have turned into a different shade. The people are having just a mere choice of electing out of two anyone. That is the right to vote. Simply right to vote does not provide all the political rights, or just simply participating in the elections do not provide all the political rights. People should have a clear choice of understanding whether the laws are in favor or not. If the laws are not made in the favor of the citizens, the people should raise their voice and start to question the points like, why is this law made? Why is this particular article brought into existence? Why is this particular law being drafted against the interests of the people? This active participation of the public is very much required to make a democratic structure really a successful one. We do understand that the people do not have much time to understand actually what are laws, what are the existing things. They are very busy in everyone's personal life, and they open their eyes only when the term comes, like when they are being affected with the laws which are passed by the government. If people are cautious and vigilant, which is one of the basic factors of democracy, then immediately the actions of the government can be questioned, and these actions, when they are questioned, government will have a chance in understanding what is the people's pulse. Once the people's pulse is understood, no government dares to go against the people's interest or the pulse. So it is very, very important for the public to react firmly when there is anything that is moved against the interest of the public. And why we need to redefine democracy is our understanding has gone beyond the basic structure of democracy. We have seen various genres of democracy, various heights of democracy, various struggles towards democracy, the gender inequalities and everything. So now it's the time to redefine the democracy and change the definition of democracy. The task is in your hands. One small logic is there behind the democracy. The actual functioning of democracy do really require certain basic qualifications, certain basic criteria. We cannot simply say that this country is following democracy just by looking at the political structure. We need to understand whether they have a multi-party system or at least two parties. Do they really offer a choice for the people to elect, and do they really provide an opportunity to dethrone the existing rulers with the constant periodic elections? So these all are certain things which we have learned, we have understood, we have analyzed through various examples to understand the democracy. So, democracy is the real-time experiment which continues to be evolving continuously as the time passes on. See, in the early 19th century, the people thought of having a government which was elected by the people. People had a wish or a dream to have an election or to have the system of governance which is having people imbibed in them, where people are well connected with that, where do people have a clear choice to do whatever they want. Like they like the leader, they would continue. If they don't like the leader, they would remove. This was initially dream. So once the democratic structure has been set up and people have decided to go with this kind of government, that came into existence is the democracy. When again, in the ancient period to the modern period, we have the diversion of the democratic structure from the direct democracy to the indirect democracy. Well, in direct democracy, you need to understand it very clearly that indirect democracy that was happening in Athens, Sparta, located in Greece, the Greece city-states. So the Greek city-states are nothing but small independent nation states which were very small. The population was more than or equal to less than 5,000 people. So it was very easy and very comfortable for them to gather, to discuss, to collect the opinions from all the people, then they would further proceed for that. But if you take an example of India or China or USA, where the population is in crores, and in India if you take in billions, in China also. So it is a very difficult and almost an impossible task to gather all the people, to collect their opinions and to proceed further. These all things are practically impossible in democracy, that too to have direct democracy. So the system has evolved into an indirect democracy, where this is an example of the direct democracy. The system has brought out an alternative called representative democracy. Or we also further call it as indirect democracy. So this indirect democracy or like representative democracy, it is very clear and we need to understand it that practically to gather all the people on the modern day, it's a very difficult and practically impossible task. So they decided to have a representatives for a group of people who would further represent them in the larger community. Let's take for example the states of Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, or in any state in India. We have elections for every 3 lakh people. We have one representative, the member of the legislative assembly, who represents that particular section of people in the state assembly. When we talk about the parliamentarians are the people who are representing nearly 20 to 21 lakhs of people at the parliament house. It may be in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. Do Rajya Sabha have indirect elections? But in Lok Sabha, if you take into perfect people's representatives group, they are representing nearly 20 lakh people. So under each MP, we have again 7 MLAs nearby coming into the different segment regions. So a state has a representation for 3 lakh people, whereas in the center we have for 20 lakh people, the clear variation of one representative there. So it's very easy to have representatives in the modern days. That is the way the democracy got evolved from the generations to the next generations. So democracy is from the great olden days. We have it from the times immemorial, like from the 4th century or the 3rd century BC. But in the modern days, the shape of democracy has changed. The complete structure has been modified. Today, people have become very active. Today, the people are having fundamental rights, basic rights, where they can question any actions of the government. If necessary, they can move to the court to check the actions of the government. So, these all things are getting modified and added up for democracy. So, the real beauty of democracy is understanding democracy and make the democracy getting deepeningly understood by the people. When we talk about people understanding democracy deepeningly, deeply, the word deeply means here is not the depth of the ocean or the depth of something else. Understanding practically how does the democratic government work. Is it just our duty finishes when we put on our vote and there ends the matter? No. Your duty starts with the time when you put on your vote. From then onwards, whom you are going to elect, whether the person is an eligible person, appropriate person or not. After the time passes on, how is the government is going to be formed, which party is going to take the initiative, who is going to be the ruler, who is going to head up the government, what are the policies that are framed, what was mentioned in the election manifesto, whether they were able to fulfill them or not. In case if they are going against the interest of the people, we have to question them, we have to put the public interest litigations, we have the opposition parties to address the issues. So these all things are understanding of democracy. Even today, after 60 years of India got its independence, today we have poverty in existence, today we have inequality in existence, today still in some villages we have the caste discrimination in existence, even today we have economic disparity between larger sections of people. So if truly democratic structure is in existence, why are all these problems not being sorted out till now? So it means that there is a still lack of understanding of democracy in many parts of India. We need to educate the people to make them to understand and get them involved in the democratic structure. This will make the democracy to be a true democracy. And your task is now to define the democracy, and you need not worry about how should be the democratic definition of democracy, because we don't know whether which is right or which is wrong. Forget about right or wrong. Focus on the definition of democracy and write in your own words, but be able to justify why you are using that particular words in defining democracy. If you fail to explain the wording of your definition, then it would obviously be wrong. Rather, if you are able to justify it, then it is 110% right. Your definition is your understanding towards democracy. So there is no dictionary meaning to define democracy. The dictionary meaning of democracy has been waived off. It's an old definition of democracy. You people, after you have a thorough tour for 2 years of understanding democracy, now I think you all are capable to understand what is democracy, what does it do, practically what are the possibilities, what are the negativities. These all you can understand. So the fact of understanding democracy is very clear. Only thing is you should be able to understand how is the working of democracy going on practically. Take few examples, study them thoroughly, then come to a conclusion and put it in the words which are appropriate to the modern scene of democracy. So try to define it. There is no definition like good or bad unless you are able to redefine or give a meaning of the word for what you have used it. If you fail to give the meaning of the word for what you have used it, then obviously it could be a bad definition. But try to make a good definition for democracy. It is a valid point, because after studying for so many units for past 2 years, I think you all can do it very well. So all the best, do it very well. So this is the journey of democracy, practically, fundamentally, basically. So all the aspects has been covered in this, and this could be giving you a better understanding of what actually the political scenario of India, political setup of India, political structure, rights, everything, it's clear for all of you. So it would be right for you to go further ahead and define democracy.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.